In 1796, over 150 families are sent to Nova Scotia from Jamaica against their will. These are not ordinary travelers. They are in fact Trelawny Maroons coming out of two long, drawn-out wars with British forces in Jamaica. Meanwhile, in Nova Scotia, Lieutenant Governor Wentworth, who is in charge, has no idea that 500 freedom-loving rebels from Jamaica are on the way. Born into wealth as the eldest of three siblings, Wentworth suddenly finds himself in a challenging position, responsible for these new residents, who appear on a sunny July day in Halifax Harbour. To understand how this happened, first, some quick Maroon history facts. Maroons are the resistance force of the times, made up of people who fought against and fled plantation slavery to form self-governing communities in remote and hard-to-reach regions. While this work is about the Jamaican Maroons, please remember that Maroon societies existed all around both North America and South America. Wherever slave systems are active, Maroon communities push back. The Maroons are renowned for their military prowess and leadership, a constant thorn in the side of the British forces. Their guerrilla tactics and deep knowledge of the Jamaican terrain make them difficult to fight, often forcing plantation owners to abandon their lands. Whatever Maroons do not take by force, they destroy by fire, making them particularly difficult to go up against. Crops, livestock, barns, and property were all at their mercy in battle. The origin of the Maroons is in West Africa, with many hailing from the Ashanti tribe, a large percentage of whom were first enslaved in Jamaica under Spanish rule. The Maroon pledge is straightforward: never be enslaved again. They prefer death to captivity. Now, the Maroons end up in two major wars with the British. The First Maroon War occurs over 15 years, between 1725 and 1740. It includes a significant damaging revolt. The conflict ends with the British agreeing to a treaty granting the Maroons autonomy and 1,500 acres of land. However, it comes at a price. The Maroons, in exchange, are expected to capture and return runaway slaves. This alienates them from other enslaved Africans seeking freedom. The Maroons breach the treaty, since they don't always return enslaved runaways. The British breach the treaty too, on purpose. These breaches sparked the Second Maroon War, from 1795 to 1796. During the Second War, the Trelawny Maroons go on a bloody campaign of killing, destroying, and burning of plantations, resulting in the death of many people and much livestock. The destruction of a large number of farms instantly evaporates large investments made by colonists. The destruction was so vast that Alexander Lindsay, the governor of Jamaica, makes a drastic decision. He decides to find a way to expel the Trelawny Town Maroons out of Jamaica, whether legally or illegally. The British governor needs to get the Trelawny Maroons out of Jamaica. They are far too destructive. To accomplish this, he betrays the Maroons. He makes them put away their weapons and surrender, by promising that they would be able to sign another treaty and would not be removed from the colony. However, as soon as the Maroons laid down their weapons, they were transported against their will to Port Royal, Jamaica, and then immediately forced into ships that conveniently waited for them in the harbor. It was not clear where they could be sent, but the Jamaican governor urges that they be sent away from Jamaica fast. Not long after, in May of 1876, the House of Assembly in Jamaica hurriedly passes into law a deportation statute designed to immediately remove the Maroons of Trelawny Town from the island. Meanwhile, in Nova Scotia, conditions are ripe for change. The British are struggling to attract voluntary English settlers to go to Nova Scotia due to the harsh winters and poor soil there. Also, many settlers are leaving for the United States for better opportunities. Nova Scotia needs something new, and the governor of Nova Scotia knows it all too well. The Maroons' arrival represents an unexpected opportunity. He envisions leveraging the Maroons as a valuable source of labor, just like he had done with the black loyalists who had left Nova Scotia a few years before. Shipping the Maroons to Nova Scotia was a win for Jamaica's colonial government, and the government of Nova Scotia was about to try and capitalize on the opportunity. Over 2 days, on July 22nd and 23, 1796, 3 ships deliver 549 Jamaican Maroons to Nova Scotia, on bright days marked by the sunshine of late July. The Maroons, accompanied by 2 white superintendents and over £25,000 in Jamaican currency, face an uncertain future. They have landed in Halifax after over 2 months at sea. Halifax at this point is a military garrison, fortified to help the British defend against the French. Upon their arrival, the Maroons, sick and weakened from their long voyage, are released from the cramped quarters of the ship. 2/3 of the arrivals are Maroon women and children. They are now in a foreign land, no more near the familiar hills of Jamaica. The Maroons' arrival coincides with the early part of the harvesting season, so their labor is immediately valuable due to the shortage of white workers. In a colony that grows its own food for survival, and where the growing season is short, the lack of men on farms, especially between the April to July planting season, can result in starvation. Despite the presence of slavery in Nova Scotia, the idea of re-enslaving the Maroons is never entertained, yet racial prejudices cast a long shadow. You see, the settlement of the Maroons is a contentious topic. Proposals for what to do with them range from spreading them across remote areas to segregation and to even deportation to other regions. William Dawes Quarrell, a white Jamaican superintendent accompanying them from Jamaica, suggests dispersing the Maroons to weaken their sense of unity. It suggested that 100 Maroons should remain near Halifax, with 100 sent to remote locations in Nova Scotia, another 100 sent to slave states in the United States, and 100 each to Bermuda and the Bahama Islands. The governor of Nova Scotia, however, had a different vision. He moves the entire community to Preston, a settlement previously inhabited by black loyalists. He facilitates this using the money that had arrived with the Maroons on the ship. Settling the Maroons in Preston offers multiple conveniences. Primarily, it serves as an ideal base for farming. The plan was that Maroon men would sell their produce, potatoes and turnips, along with firewood, to the nearby marketplace in Halifax. Then, the soldiers based in Halifax would get access to much-needed food and provisions. The plan for the Maroons is more than just labor and farming. Another goal is to integrate the Maroons into the colony through education and training in religion, British social norms and practices. Christianity, they believed, would be key to transforming them into a loyal and productive part of the empire. The governor of Nova Scotia refers to them as 600 pagans, who would be lost, as he put it,
without a faithful establishment for their instruction in the Christian religion and in reading and writing the English language.
They hoped religious belief would domesticate the Maroons. Within a month of the Maroons' arrival, the governor again noted how necessary religious training would be.
It will be of the most serious importance, both civil and religiously considered, to instruct these poor people in the Christian religion and to teach their children to read and write and common ciphering, for which I find them both capable and much disposed.
they would try to combine education and religious teaching in an effort to tame what they saw as the wild, unpredictable Maroon. The Maroons, they argue, should leave behind their customs, like hunting and cooking wild hogs, and pigeons, their traditional, vibrant celebrations of life after a person passes away, and the practice of burying their dead near their dwellings. Perhaps most difficult of all, they desire that the Maroon men should renounce the option of polygamy and accept the sole authority of a monogamous Christian marriage. They hope that older Maroons would carry their customs to the grave as they age, and the newer generation of Maroons would adopt more English ways. Wentworth's goals for the Maroons also has a military angle. The Maroons' prowess in warfare is an asset to British interests, provided that their loyalty was secured. The presence of their families in Nova Scotia was seen as a leverage to ensure their allegiance. The British wanted to make sure the Maroons would resist working with the French, who were still very active as a colonizing force in the region. The British confidence in the reforming of the Maroons came too soon. The Maroons forcefully resist the British religious teachings and refuse to be passively incorporated into the lower rungs of the Nova Scotian farming and military society. Jamaican councillor Brian Edwards writes about the Maroons in 1801.
The conversion of savage men from a life of barbarity to the knowledge and practice of Christianity is a work of much greater difficulty than many pious and excellent persons in Great Britain seem fondly to imagine.
This observation unintentionally acknowledges the independence of the Maroons. No amount of teaching and money from England could change their foundational values. Even worse, the Nova Scotia weather leads to an unexpected barrier. Initially, the Maroons arrive in Nova Scotia in the summertime when the weather was warm and pleasant. However, problems develop during their first winter, which just happens to be on record as the longest and coldest ever since the British settled Nova Scotia in 1649. The Maroons were shocked and disturbed by the unexpectedly harsh winter, which they had never seen anything like before. When they see fresh, white snow covering the ground and the water, they are stunned and disappointed. The short days and low sunlight levels of winter continue for what feels like an eternity. During this first winter, they collectively and unanimously decide Nova Scotia is not a safe place or friendly climate for Maroons. From that point forward, the Maroons change strategy. They refuse to cooperate with any government efforts at settling them. Overnight, the Maroons became unpopular with Nova Scotia residents and authorities, as they were viewed as non-cooperative and rebellious, an insulated nation to themselves. In the end, the Maroons' pleas were heard. After 3 years of advocacy, which included agitating for an alternative at multiple levels of government, 538 Trelawny Maroons are relocated to Sierra Leone, joining former enslaved Africans who had made a similar journey years earlier. In Sierra Leone, the Nova Scotia Maroons' history of self-governance and autonomy, tracing back to their initial independence fights against Britain, play an essential role in the development of the region. Ultimately, the region becomes part of the official independent Republic of Sierra Leone, closing the Maroon chapter on a high note.